Yes. Here we go. Coaches coaching, coaches coaching. My favorite part of the week. We're on episode, I think, like 19. I think we're on 19. Got myself, RJ, Lane's in the building. Michelle is on the line. And we are talking programming, okay? And we're talking program design and all that good stuff. But interesting fact before we get started, okay? Interesting fact. Westminster opened up at 5 a.m. 1 hour ago, and that is our 29th club for Vasa Fitness. Woo! So, very exciting, guys, to be a part of Vasa, that we're sitting here doing a coaching call, and the 29th club just opened up an hour ago. Awesome to be a part of that. Anyway, good stuff. Okay, so let's get right into it. I'm going to share my screen here. And here we go. Start with why, okay? So with program design and talking about programming and why we're doing what we're doing, that's what we want to start with, is why, what's the whole point of all of this. We've got a good little story about Americans versus Germans that Lane's going to share with us to kind of paint the picture a little bit. So go ahead.
Yeah, so there's this idea of the Allies were fighting against the Germans, and the problem was, pretty quickly they realized that the Germans were firing shells at the Allies 3 times faster than the Allies could fire back. You know, and I'm not like a military expert, but I'm pretty sure that really hurts your chances for winning the war. Okay, if you're firing 3 times slower than your enemy, that doesn't bode well. So the generals keep going down the chain. They're asking the Americans, and they go to their next guy down the line. Why are we doing this? Why are we firing so slow? And he's like, well, that's what it says in the manual. He's like, okay. So they go back to the World War I manual, and it says fire the shells, wait 30 seconds, reload. Okay, that's what it says in the manual. So they go back again to the previous war. They go all the way back to the Civil War manual.
So they went back a few wars.
Okay.
Look at the manuals.
You know, we're back well over 50 years at this point. Like, anyway, we're going way, way back. And it says, in the final, you get all the way back to the Civil War manual, and it says, fire the shells, wait 30 seconds so that you can steady the horses, then reload the cannon. Okay? And now here we are, decades and decades later, doing the same stupid thing because it was in the manual. So they quickly made an adjustment, realized their mistake, right? Realized, oh, we don't use horses or cannons anymore. Okay, we should adjust that. All of a sudden, they were firing just as fast as the Germans, and you know how that war ended. So that's the point. It's very important that we ask ourselves that question every once in a while. What if the way I've always done it was wrong? And am I willing to receive new information and adjust based on that? So
yeah, and you know, to his point, 2 examples of that was yesterday with Josh Hill. That's on the call. You know, he was talking about his book that he just wrote 3 years ago or 4 years ago, whatever it was, and he was like, yeah, we don't do that anymore. Yeah, we don't do that anymore. Yeah, we don't do that anymore. There was like 4 things. He's like, yeah.
And he said, I learned new things.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then, cool. Yeah, exactly. And the same thing with, you know, even this program design. You know, Michelle sent me over the slides, and they were some of the older slides. We'd updated some of them, but even that we had to update, you know, and cut off and things of that nature. So, you know, the thing about this is we're talking different things we were a year ago than we were 2 years ago, right? This is an ongoing thing. It's always changing because we're learning new things, right? And that will never stop, right? So anyway, so with that said, let me go back to sharing the screen here. We're going to give Michelle the floor here for a second. So, so with that said, go ahead, Michelle, why don't you talk through these 3 rules of Vasa Fitness in-session training?
Yeah. So with our program design, with our training, we go over it's our main 3 cardinal rules that we kind of shared with Boyle and his facility. The number 1 is no injuries during training. We don't have people coming to the club to get hurt, and believe it or not, that's not what they're paying for. So when they come into the club, and as we're thinking, we're training these people, or everybody comes with a pre-existing condition of some sort, whether they have bad knees or bad back, or they have something that is inhibited in some way. And so we're very, very, very careful and very adamant about not creating injuries during our training, and it's one of the number 1 things, obviously, that we consider when doing program design. With that being said, for 2 is to prevent future injury. So when they come in, our goal is we're training movements, right? How they move, things that reflect daily life, trying to help create just a better training experience as well as better quality of life. And by doing that, we're preventing future injury in the future. We want them to be strong enough, or to strengthen those knees or that back, or whatever problems that they've had before, so that they're not going back out and doing things like going on a walk or lifting their grandkids and getting hurt. So we very much want to prevent injury in the future. And then obviously number 3 is achieve champion goals. So continue that goal setting process. Small goals lead to big goals, and making sure that we're moving in the direction and definitely helping them see results, because that's what they're paying for and that's why we're coming, but making sure that we're also keeping those injury factors in mind at the same time. Perfect. RJ, we can't hear you.
Thank you. Sorry. You hear me now? Okay. So,
yeah.
The big thing is it's in order, right? It's no injuries first, prevent injuries, achieve their goals, right? It's in that order. And that's where a lot of confusion in the fitness industry. Instagram has been one of the best and worst things for the fitness industry, in that, everyone's trying to just one up each other and do the next dumb thing, right? Because they don't have the first goal in mind of no injuries, right? That's one big reason why CrossFit is not our jam, right? Is because of that exact thing. Can you get results doing CrossFit? Yes. You can get great, phenomenal results doing CrossFit. Is your risk for injury high? Very. Regardless of the coaching, I do not care, right? The programming, it's going to eventually happen at some point if it hasn't already, right? So that's where we're at with training. In our mentality is with that first no injuries in mind, that going from there, right? I just want to make sure that is reiterated and hit it home, because that's a huge, huge piece of what we're doing. Okay, ran over. We can move on to the next slide. Great. Okay, so go ahead, Michelle, with this next slide.
So what do we mean when we say functional strength and conditioning? Which you get multiple different definitions when you're, especially now with everything, like you said, being on Instagram. It's a lot of the connection of functional anatomy to training. And what do we mean by that? Is that the anatomy of the body, the way we train it, is actually the way that it's designed to move. So training based on science, not history. And then we, like we said in the beginning, we continuously try to educate ourselves and update ourselves, because there's an incident, I think, with all of us in multiple where we have been doing things that were wrong in the past, and making sure that we're moving the body in the right direction. So it matters on 2 things. So anatomy and physics. Anatomy being what were the muscles designed to do, what movement patterns, and following those as we train. And 2, physics is we're lifting heavy weight at different angles. What kind of torque is that going to have on the body when we're thinking injury and helping train in that way? So be thinking anatomy and physics when you think functional strength training. I feel like I have to wait until I click my next slide.
No, that's perfect. Go ahead. Go to the next one. Go to the next one.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So when we're talking, as far as anatomy goes, we're talking the 5 rules of muscle tissue. We're talking about the quality of the muscle, the length, temperature, strength, and tolerance. So what is the length of that muscle? Is it warm or not warm? Strength, what is it meant to do? How strong is it to begin with? And what can it handle? Those sort of things. So a little bit more basics in your basic anatomy class, but enough so that we understand that All of those things matter and play into the end result when it comes to training muscles and strength training.
Yeah. So with that being said, so what I want to do is I want to kind of piece this all together using these slides and then also using the programming. So she's got here, or we got here the 5 rules, right? You go to the recipe and you've got foam roll, stretch, mobility, activation, stability, dynamic warm-up, power, lift, conditioning, okay? So go back to here, quality, length, temperature, strength, tolerance, right? As we go through these slides, you'll notice that we have, like on foam rolling stretch, the mass drills, right? You've got quality and length, okay? So in each part of our session, okay, quality, length, right? That's going to be in those mass drills, in the stretching, all that good stuff. Temperature, warm up, power drills, strength is in the lift, tolerance, that's your conditioning, right? How much tissue tolerance do you have, right? So we're addressing all of these things through our training program, right? We making sense? Okay, so now if we take that, I'm going to stop sharing for just 1 second because I need to get an email pulled up. Technology 2018. Here we go. What's happening? Oh, there we go. Coming up. So I want to show this in regards to the whole program overall, so you guys can get a picture of, let's go back here, share the screen, and we're there, right? So now when you're looking at the full program, right, now we're getting a good idea of, okay, right, foam roll, stretch, mass drills, right? That's when we're talking about the tissue quality, tissue length, right? Dynamic warm-up, right? Tissue temperature, okay? Tolerance, conditioning, right? Strength, your lift, right? So now you're kind of able to piece all of that together, right, in looking at the overall program. Okay, let me go back to sharing this again. Okay, so Michelle, going back to, sorry, just a sec, almost got it. Going back here, so now we've got the recipe, kind of talk to that, and then we can start into some of the pieces of it.
Okay, perfect. So on the recipe, as we saw with on the program, is that we go through foam rolling, stretching, mobility, activation, stability, or our mass drills, dynamic warm-up, power, our lift, and conditioning. In that programming that we have, we hit all of those things to address, like we said, those 5 rules of the muscle tissue, and to make sure that we're, again, following our 3 main cardinal rules of injury. Trying to make sure that we're helping that quality length of the muscle with our foam roll, stretching, mobility, activation, stability. We're warming it up in our warm-up, increasing that temperature. Power and lift, we're developing strength in the muscle, and then conditioning, incorporating a little bit more tolerance for there as well.
Great.
Perfect. Okay. I got to change mine.
So,
okay.
Yeah, so looking at, so real quick, so looking at the this first part, the foam rolling, stretch, mobility, activation, stability, I want you to pay attention to first this right-hand side, right? You've got stability, mobility, stability, mobility, right? So you've got that joint-by-joint approach, okay? Your body is basically made into stable joints, mobile joints, stable joints, mobile joints, stable joints, mobile joints, right? And that's how it works, right? And so when you're thinking about what you want is that bottom quote at the very bottom. I'm having a hard time. There we go. Get the right muscles moving, the right joints at the right time. Okay, I remember, and Chris Frankel, when he was here from TRX, said this same exact thing. You know, and that's just basically all it is. It's getting the right thing to move at the right time. You know, it sounds so simple, but that's at the end of the day, that's it, right?
Think of if you have a compensation right? Your low back's overactive, or your hamstrings are doing the work with your glutes. That's the wrong muscle moving the wrong joint at the wrong time. And then we get injury. So that's why these first three are so important. Why we don't just walk in the gym and go right into a lift. Because we got to get people's bodies moving properly first so that we can load them.
And guys, this is becoming more and more prevalent and more important. You know, right now we're testing out different things like TRX maps and FMS screening and things of that nature. You know, we've been doing FMS screening for a while now, but, you know, TRX maps and those types of things we're testing out in South Jordan. But this is going to become more and more, you know, it already has been, but will become more and more, and we're working to make it to where it's more fine-tuned to the actual person and what's going on to them. And right now we do a lot more of a shotgun approach, but yeah. Michelle, do you have anything to add on this?
No, I think looking at the stable mobile joints, though, I think this goes back to making sure that we understand what we're doing with the body as well. For instance, and we'll talk about it as we get to when we get to our core section. But for instance, one of the things that I was always doing wrong is I did like 500 crunches a night, and turns out that's supposed to be stable and not supposed to move to begin with. So we've all had those instances where just understand that as we're trying to train, we're trying to base it off what the body naturally already does rather than forcing it into something that doesn't. And that's where that injury prevention comes into play.
Oh, exactly. The other thing, guys, just two things we put on here: incorporate breathing and incorporate community. You know, I think we're just getting the tip of the iceberg, and I think at VASA, but in general, just the industry as a whole with breathing and the importance of it, right? You know, the example I'm trying to remember who shared it with us, but basically, you know, you think about, okay, if you stopped eating, you know, how long would you live? Okay, probably about 30 days, right? Maybe a little less. Okay, if you stop drinking water, how long would you last? 3 days, right? Okay, so how often do we talk about nutrition and hydration and all those types of things? Okay, well, if you stop breathing, how long would you last? A couple minutes and you're done. Okay, so, but we don't work on it a ton, but we, you know, VASA through Breathe and through other things are incorporating that more. So, you know, that's more of a thing of educating yourself on breathing and the importance of it. And then also the community aspect, guys. When you're foam rolling, you're stretching. You know, everybody's in that comfortable state. They're not dying yet. You know, they're not in the lift. And so this is a great opportunity to build community in your groups. Hey, you know, Mrs. Jones, how are things going? Oh, you know, just last week I had my client. One of my clients just wrote a book. You know, and so she had told me, hey, I wrote a book. And I was like, hey, guys, did you guys know Diane wrote a book? That's awesome, right? So, you know, that sort of thing, you know, making connections and having them, you know, introducing your clients to each other is important, right? Make sure that they get to know each other, okay? Nothing else? Okay, let's go on to the next one.
Okay.
So on this one, guys, wanted to make this fairly simple. You know, basically we kind of put the warm up and power in the same category. And this is where you're working on that tissue temperature, right? Raising the temperature of the tissue. We always say start slow, finish fast with it. And then you're thinking multi-directional, you know, mirrors the lift, and then you're earning the right. That's with the power. So mirrors the lift, meaning, you know, this equals that same thing that we've been talking about of going through a stability WOD, you know, this movement looks like that movement, is really
like
important.
A straight leg skip in your power warm up or in your dynamic warm up is a single leg deadlift pattern. It's the exact same pattern.
Yep.
You're warming up your body to then go do a loaded version of that, which is so cool.
Yep. And then the guys on the right, you know, the big thing with that is especially with power is that your clients are earning the right to progress to the next thing. You know, there's some clients that are not ready for power right now. And so we've got to make sure that they've earned the right to do that. Okay, so that's a big thing with the power. Anything else on that one, Michelle?
No, I think that was great.
Great. Thanks. Okay, so guys, on this one, and I actually need to take the, we're going to do that kind of as we're talking. With this one, this is your lift. we put on here your 5 basic movements: push, pull, hip dominant, knee dominant, core carry corrective. We put into one category. And then on the right-hand side, we've got all the different kind of ways that we look at lifting. You know, keep it simple: regressions, progressions, lateralizations, and CACR. So, Michelle, why don't you speak to the left-hand side, and then I'll talk about the right.
Okay. You're talking my view, right? So the push-pull.
Yeah, push. Yeah, push. Yep, you got it.
So as far as with strength, we go through these movements. When we say push, we mean horizontal, vertical, push up, pull, chin up, hip dominant, deadlift, knee dominant, split squat. So just making sure that when we're training and as we're going through, okay, we've got 3 different rounds of such and such exercises. Did we hit all of these movements? And if we didn't hit them in this day in our programming, did we make sure we hit them in the second day? So making sure that this kind of goes to our total body philosophy, right? We don't train like Frankenstein. We don't do all arms one day. We don't do all knees with legs one day, legs one day. And doing, as far as core, are we doing core, carry, corrective? So if they can't hit one of those movements, are we throwing in a corrective to help them be able to hit it the next time, or to progress that movement pattern so that they can take a load? Or are we doing anti-rotation and carry type things to help strengthen our core without ever actually doing crunches or sit-ups, and creating a stable atmosphere in the core and stability there rather than training it as a mobile muscle? So these movements are very much what we use when designing this program that RJ shared with you guys on the screen, to make sure that we're hitting these movements as we go down through our exercises. And I would read them off to you, but it's too small on my phone. RJ, do you want to show them? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Let me actually show. I'm going to try and show this video. I got this hooked up. I'm going to see if I can get this working here real quick. Let's see here. Just 1 second, guys. Okay, I think I might have it. Here we go. You guys able to see that?
I get on my screen. It's still sharing or waiting to share.
All right. Well, maybe what we'll do, guys. I'll link in the comments, and then we'll put it on the YouTube video. It's basically a video of someone from Movement is Movement Medicine or Muscle Mind. It's some of the Boyle people. They put together a great video on why we do what we do, as far as, you know, carries, showing somebody, you know, carrying groceries into their house, you know, getting up off the floor, you know, just some regular things, you know, putting dishes away, why we do chop and lift, you know, sort of thing. So we'll send that in the links and in the link below. Anyway, sorry about that. So going back to do the lift, guys, so we can look at that screen again. You've got, you know, so you can see kind of upper left-hand corner, goblet squat, inline chop, bear crawl, right? So that's essentially a knee dominant movement, and then 2 corrective or core movements in a round, right? Second round, reaching single leg deadlift and a rotation hold, chin up. So there's a vertical pull, a core corrective, and a hip dominant movement, right? And we try to get all of the movements in each round, right? And there you've got a balanced workout. Okay, so going back to now, when I'm looking at this screen, just want to make sure I'm showing the right screens here. When I'm looking at this screen here, right, keeping it simple, okay? So keep it simple, stupid. That's the first kind of rule that we look at when looking at the lift. Okay, we're thinking progressions, we're thinking regressions, right, on everything. Okay, so everything's got a regression, everything's got a progression, okay? And then from there, lateralizations, okay? You know, how do we go from doing a goblet squat to an offset goblet squat? Offset goblet squat, that would be a lateralization, right? So that's what we're looking at, as well as how can we, use the same movement pattern and load it differently, or change tempo, change sets, reps, changing weight. There's a lot of different things and a lot of different variables, right? Same pattern, different plate, right? And then TACR, right? Coach, assess, cue, repeat, right? You're coaching the movement, you're assessing the client doing the movement, and then you're giving them cues to fix the movement, and then you're just repeating that over and over and over and over and over again, right? And that's what we look at as coaching, right? I'm showing you what to do. I'm watching you do it. If you don't do it correctly, I'm correcting you, and then we're going to keep doing that until we're done, right? And that's one thing I think sometimes we get a disconnect on. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here, but sometimes we get a little bit of a disconnect on having an understanding of where to balance the how much, really how shitty is too shitty, right? When you're looking at movement. And so, but that's a big part of what you're doing, right? You've got to get involved and get coaching. That's one thing that we really got to push more and more is you can't just sit and show them something and then just watch them do it. That's not coaching, that's training. Very different, right? You're going in, you're showing them, and then you're setting a level of what you're expecting them to do, and you got to make sure they achieve that level. Okay, so I'm going on a little bit of a rant here, but it's very important when you're coaching anything. But anyways, got it. Okay. Let's go on to. Let me go back to our slides here. We're going to talk conditioning, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. But okay, so conditioning, guys. So tissue tolerance. Okay, so this is how much can you take, basically, right? That's how I look at conditioning sometimes. But interval training is a lot of what we're doing. Multi-directional start and stops. Okay, and when we say start and stops, we're meaning we're not going on long distance runs for 3 miles with people, right? There's not a whole lot of starting. There's one start and there's one stop in a 3-mile run, typically, right? What we're looking at is starting, stopping, changing directions, and then a lot of intervals, and working with different ratios as far as 1-to-1, 1-to-2, work to rest ratios, but getting people's heart rates in different zones and elevating it and working with the MyZone on that. Any other things you guys have on that? Michelle?
No, I would just say the multi-directional is super important, because when you think about classic injuries that happen in the sporting world, whether you get an MCL tear in soccer or an LCL tear, it's because people had it trained as much. It usually never happens in the forward or in the forward direction. It's usually because they're jotting to the side or jotting to the side, and that's why multi-directional is so super important. Is that, and if any of these people, you usually tweak it not when you're going forward or backward. It's usually when you're always going side to side, when you tend to get an injury in that way. And so that's why I think it's very, very important that we train multi-directional in conditioning, so that we're there then further again preventing those injuries in the future.
And the one thing I would say on that too, guys, is this is another kind of red flag area where you've got to be very careful and conscious as a coach. If you're doing your conditioning at the end of the session, people are tired, they're fatigued, right? You don't want them going ham at the end of the session after they just got done with the lift, they just got done with power work, they just got done with a ton of stuff. They're tired, they're fatigued. And you've got to realize that as a coach. You've got to have an understanding of that.
I'll just say in 2 seconds, as a coach, integrating MyZone into my training, to RJ's point, being able to see where my clients are at and knowing who to push forward and who to pull back has made interval training just phenomenal. It's dialed into the individual, so it's really cool that that's an awesome tool that we use at VASA.
And a lot more of our conditioning, especially when it comes to teams, will be geared towards that model of going at the client's pace rather than setting a standard across the board, right? So guys, going into these last two slides, you've got build an adaptable program. You know, what we were talking about at the beginning of starting with why and why are we doing what we're doing. You know, what I would say we're doing is we're bringing elite training to the masses, right? You look at where we are developing our programming from with Mike Boyle, Dan John, Todd Durkin, you know, all the Gray Cook, Rearick, all these different guys, right? And that's, you know, that's what we've got, all these elite things going on, and we're bringing that down to everyday Joe and Jane, right? And so it's a system that you know, that we're following and taking, and it's our system, right? We've taken from different people and adapted it to our program and what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish. And these are, you know, various different variables that we're using to be able to change it and help, you know, with people and push them to the next, you know, next part of their life, next level of their life, right? So there you go. There's the summary. Michelle, you want to kind of wrap that up for us?
Yeah, so guys, just looking over it, in addition, program design, start with why. Remember, we could be doing it wrong and being adaptable as we go along. In session, we have those big 3 cardinal rules: no injury, prevent future injury, and gain champion results. Stick with the recipe, and then just be an adaptable coach, and you should do just fine.
There you go. You should do just fine. No, and that's it. The one thing she's exactly right is, you know, the one thing I love about Boyle that I've adopted is if you're new, don't think. Okay, take the program, take the progression regression sheet, know it, and don't think. Just do it, right? Just know it. Just a cook. Just do it exactly the way we're telling you to do it. I promise you it will work. I promise you your clients will get results. You'll be a phenomenal trainer, and worry about the experience and having a great time, and don't worry about the programming, right? Just follow what's on the sheet, do it with your clients, and they'll get great results. There you go. Coaches coaching. Was that 19? 19. There you go. 19. Thanks, Michelle Lee.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful day. See ya.